I'm very excited. I don't know about you, Evan. This will be the
Yeah,
first
man.
time we'll get to take advantage of this recording over the internet setup we have now and have a really interesting guest on today.
Yeah, we kind of did a trial run last time to make sure that it would work and that we could hear everything so that we could get in touch with people that don't live within 30 miles of us, obviously,
Yeah.
because that really broadens the scope at which we're able to do. But yeah, we've been trying to get together with this dude since before like the WGI season started last year.
I
But
think
at the time, just didn't work out.
Yeah, I think this is one of the first guests we talked about wanting to have on when we had the idea for the podcast originally. This is the first name that came to mind. So before we introduce him, welcome everyone to the Aged Out Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Fantini, and with me as always is...
Evan Worrell.
And today's guest is an awesome one, the infamous Dan Schack. So I'll go ahead and let him introduce himself, and we'll go from there.
So, what about me inspired you to make a podcast, might I ask? I'm going to start this as a reverse interview.
Oh, no,
invert the stakes.
Stepbrother
No.
style.
Dude, I got this. So obviously we put a lot of pressure by Mike's lead in saying like we thought of you, and I think most of it was just conversations and interactions and talks that we had during our years marching together, and how much we enjoyed just talking with you and conversing, because you're definitely a wordsmith, more so than a lot of people that maybe we've had on. I mean, we'll get into that in a minute, but part of that is from your background in schooling and just how articulate and well-spoken you are, but just how witty and funny and charismatic you are. And just, I think that was one of the things that motivated me to be like, we got to get Dan Schack on this thing. Cause I feel like we could just get him going and we can just talk about whatever, even if it's not related to drums, and it would be awesome.
This better be good then.
It's a high bar.
I know, right?
It's a high bar. So yeah,
It's the bar that I accept. I accept that bar. I appreciate all that. It's weird to hear because I try to stray away from watching videos that I talk in, and I had one of those the Marching Society Ryan Ellis thing. I did that one with him, which has it's like 2,500 views, whatever. And
no big deal,
No, I mean that kind of starts to feel like a little bit.
No, it is.
When I think about a room of 2,500 people and you conceptualize that as actual people sitting there and listening, it becomes more, obviously, and just that number on a screen, it feels a little bit different. So, but that one, and then there's Flow, with Jason Schlodweiler, he's doing a good job picking up the content. But, I always think it's really weird to see videos of myself talking and doing interviews, because it's just like, is that really it? And you never know. There's that thing where it's like you can never really know what you give off into the world, and I've learned a lot about myself from what people tell me about myself more than what I actually have perceived from the inside. So it's always interesting.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, because even going back and listening to previous podcasts that we've done on this to try to better myself, there's things that I pick up on and catch in little nuance that I'm like, man, I have to get rid of that or eliminate that. Or even though it's just like us talking and we're all, I don't know, Mike and I are 90 miles apart and Dan's 300 miles apart. I don't know the actual distance there. I was like, man, we have to bring something to the table that people want to listen to, whether it's the energy and the way that you articulate or just whatever. But I definitely can latch on and agree with that sentiment.
Yep. So Dan, tell us where all you march.
Well, okay, so I started marching base 1 at Norwalk High School in Norwalk, Connecticut. They're a perennial WGI medalist now, with my buddy Dave Dumont at the helm of that. He's keeping it really consistent with them. So I started there. We weren't doing WGI at the time, but I was local to Stanford High School and West Hill High School and Trumbull High School and all these schools that were around Norwalk and Connecticut. And a lot of us ended up going to Connecticut Hurricanes. This is an all-age group, DCA. So I spent from 2005 that was the first place I marched snare drum. I marched bass drum in high school. I got cut from the indoor group off snare and played bass again. And then in April, I went and started playing snare drum for the first time at DCA, marching in the line with people who are, the age I am now, basically.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it was really weird. And I don't know if I can explain everything that I saw and did in those years, but it was an interesting situation. I was there from when I was 14 years old to 19 years old. So by the time I was done, I was a 5-year vet. And, it's when you're at an organization for 5 years, you get to know it well and it knows you well. And that comes with certain responsibilities and, and certain passes on other things. So, and throughout those years, I started to get into the DCI thing and started to audition at different places and ended up through a video audition. I didn't go out in the fall or anything, but I sent in a video to Cavaliers after someone dropped at their April camp, and then I ended up filling a hole there in 2010, and then I marched Cavaliers 10 and 11. So by this time, I'm 7 years deep in drum corps, obviously.
You were the section leader at Cavies in 11, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, I was. I will always be the section leader of the 2011 Cavaliers. People say that in past tense, and I'd like to remind them it's always going to be that. You can't take that from me. So, yeah, I was the short one in the center with the gauges and a more fruitful hairline at the time. It's parted since then.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, but you look good. We can pull this off. So we can get down that rabbit hole later on. But anyway, so yeah, I spent 10-11 at Cavaliers, and I got to be the section leader there. I was very lucky that I sort of fell into that, and then was given some of the reins, and it obviously went in a positive direction. And I also marched United Percussion right before I went off to Cavaliers in 2010, and then I got the call and went in and marched Rhythm X 11 and 12. That's obviously, how us three came together and spent those very important, what it feels like important years at Rhythm X, for the organization and for all of us. Obviously that group of people that were in it was very special couple of years, I would say. I bet everyone says that about the years they marched X, but so I marched Rhythm X, and then I, unfortunately, I kind of started to shift away, and I had marched, 7 years of drum corps, so I didn't march my age out. I could have marched 2012 and 2013. I instead decided to
Wait, time out. You could have marched 2013 DCI?
No, sorry. 2012 DCI, 2013 WHI.
Yeah, see, you and I both missed out on that gold medal.
Yeah. Oh, 2013 Rhythm X, yeah.
Both of us could have marched.
Actually, after the show, because I definitely watched it live, I was at headquarters with Evan and Audrey and I think Travis, and we were all standing there. It was like, whoa, nice. And it was kind of like, this is cool. I didn't feel that that feeling of I should have, and I should, I was super happy for the team, and that was Mike Scott's first year, and he totally just nailed it, and it was wow, what a win for everyone. So I definitely felt happy for the group, and I got my gold medal, or my I got to.
Yeah, I feel like you glossed over that. You glossed over at my section, I was fortunate enough to be section leader of the Cavaliers, and that went in a positive direction. It's you won a drum trophy. That's about as positive as
it can't get any better
per DCI season for your percussion section.
No, it's cool, but I think a big problem now, and it's sort of I can retrospectively say this, but it's I feel now, because that's happened, that's more tangible, and I don't like that. When I was a little kid, in 2010, I was at Cavaliers just sort of trying to find my way in the organization, doing a terrible job, by the way. I was a huge nuisance to everyone around me, and they were super code red with how I just was as a person. But I didn't have any aspiration to go in or be a section leader or whatever. I just was I really want to march DCI because I see these people in these uniforms, and it's I am so tremendously dwarfed by that I just have to do it. It's what probably people feel when they see NFL players, or and these dudes are just huge, they're literally huge. But when you see DCI group when you're younger, it's wow, I just never thought I would do it. And I was getting cut over and over again. I got cut for so many years in a row from DCI groups. So between the time me walking into Cavaliers and winning, it was a blink of an eye, and all I can say is we just really put our like noses to the grindstone. I didn't really have that drive to win. And now, like I said, now it's like, oh, I did it, so like I better do it again. Like it's kind of nagging at me in a way because of that. So that's not to like boo-hoo. I got to be the section leader of, this drum line that has like almost 2 million views on YouTube and blah, blah, blah. Like I know all those things, but it also, it creates a certain standard that I feel like, wow, I better like show up because all these people have this idea about what I expected to do in my performance. And now that I'm teaching that, that it still comes up, so I don't know. There's no point to this rant.
No, it's fine. I loved it.
It happens.
But so anyway, you kind of segued a little bit there, obviously.
Yeah, sorry.
We met with the Rhythm X years where I remember that year very well, 2011, where like 3 people showed up who could actually play snare drum for the first audition. And then we were basically like, we have to make some phone calls. And I know you guys, you and Travis were still, I guess at the time, intending to march another group. And we were like, have you guys been contracted yet? And you're like, no. And we're like, well, come on down.
Yeah, I think the first camp,
yep.
Evan, I think the first camp was me, you, Tom, and Dan Poulter.
Matt. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was it.
Right, in terms of people who actually made it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe Zach J was there. I don't remember.
Zach J was there.
So 5 out of the 9.
I don't even think Joe Woody or Matt Black were at the first camp for some reason or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
But,
and that was another thing where it was like, I was doing United in 10. And then it was like, I remember in Cavaliers, in 2010 Cavaliers, Luke Willingham and a couple guys were like, dude, you should come down to MCM, blah, blah. And I was like, that's funny, whatever. I go to school in Philly at the time. And then, I go to the first audition camp at United. I'm like, okay, this is cool. And, and then I like get a phone call from Josh and it's like, hey man, like, I'm getting a lot of people in my ear that I should be reaching out to you and some other people and that we could like sync up kind of a ride situation and get you guys out here. And it was like, like what I was saying about like aspirations to do something, this isn't even in like the scope of like reality, like Rhythm X, like, no, it's in Ohio and it's like Tim Jackson and like Andrew and all these people. And it's like, no, like that's not even, that's beyond even what I thought I could be looking at. And then all of a sudden, like we just drove out every weekend, like we commuted and, that year, 2011, I mean, that was quintessential indoor to me, what we were doing. I remember like being in the Kettering band room and we were in those 3 like diagonals, like standing with the music stands and we would learn 3 counts of music and then we'd stage 3 counts of drill and then we'd go back and we go back and forth. And it was like, oh, you don't need to do indoor or this activity at all in any certain way. Like it was just mind blowing. It totally shatters your conception of like everything you've done, how you've learned to do it, like what you think you should be doing, things you think about or not. It was totally next level. So, we all did that together, just totally just eating it every weekend. We were all going in there just getting our minds blown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How long was the drive? Because you, Travis, and Tom made it every weekend. How many hours was it?
And J-Rod too, right? Didn't you guys like pick up?
Yeah. So, well, Tom moved out. He ended up living in Columbus and Indy and a bunch of different places that season. And Chris and I out, but it would be about 4 hours to Jared, and then be about 3 or 4 hours from the Pittsburgh area to I think we were in Dayton that year. So it could range. It could range 8. Sometimes it took 12. One time it took 15 because there was an accident in one of the tunnels on the Pennsylvania Turnpike and someone was dead and we had to go on this like emergency access road. So it was hefty every time. It was at least like I think 8 hours. I don't know if my math adds up. It's aggressive.
That's a pretty committed drive every weekend for sure. But anyway, so that's where we all met, became like great friends, obviously like brothers in a sense. I invited everyone from that 2011 snare line to my wedding, which is funny. which you still
times.
use, which Dan coincidentally still uses from occasion, a picture from my wedding
Yeah,
for his
okay, so-
staff bios.
And we're gonna have to stop there because if you remember, and I think I can talk about this on the podcast. I fully intend to.
Proceed.
That picture
Do
was
it.
the one. First of all, I try not to use that one anymore because it's very misleading about what I look like because I shaved my head now. So I look like boyish and young. It's when I still resembled a frothy Corey Matthews from Boy Meets World, if you will. And
Frothy.
I've departed and I've moved in a different direction. This direction is not necessarily better or worse. It's just different. So I just want to start there. But if you recall, Evan, one of Audrey's friends or something, like that picture got posted, and I had a girlfriend at the time, but it got posted and she was like, "Yum."
Yeah,
That
she
was the
literally,
whole
that's the only thing she typed on the comment of the picture. YUM, yum,
Perfect.
damn Schack.
Oh yeah. So
Always a
we're
lady
head
killer.
to-
That's how you know it's a good pick. I mean,
Oh yeah.
It was honestly, it was a good picture, and I wasn't like fundamentally upset about that. I just thought it was like we use this radical form of technology that connects us to everyone all over the world at any time, and she chooses to write "yum."
oh
love it.
my gosh. But yeah, so obviously, like, that's the level of connection that we had as, like, not just like members of the same group, but just like friends and like brothers and like a brotherhood that it creates. Like you were talking about how that group means so much to people who are in it, that I invited every single one of the people in the 2011 snare line. I was like, you guys are welcome at my wedding. But yeah, so we had the Mexican connection. You guys obviously made the sacrifice to drive, which I certainly appreciated as a person who was thrown into an awkward situation of you're going to have to lead this group. Kind of similar to what you were talking about with the Cavaliers gig. I was just kind of like, oh, I have to do this. Okay. I don't feel like I'm good enough as a individual or whatever to do this.
You're giving me too much credit because between 2010 and 2011, we had a ton of good vets at Cavaliers. I had like this whole squad of dudes that were honestly better players than I was. And if I recall, 2011 snare line, you were the only vet after coming out of 2010, which is like super stacked with great players and like tenured snare drummers from a variety of groups and backgrounds. So you were literally the only vet of that snare line. So it's not exactly the same, but I appreciate it.
But anyway, yeah. So obviously, one to Fred Sanford, March Cavaliers, this, that. You kind of have transitioned earlier to how you mentioned you still hold yourself to that same standard in your teaching background. So kind of take us through that, how you got into the other side of the activity, not as a member, but as an educator.
Sure. I'll try to be slightly more linear. I apologize.
No. I like the pathway moments.
But yeah, so I went into 7th Regiment drum corps open class one day in 2012 because I hadn't aged out. I wasn't trying to like do anything. I didn't have offers, whatever. I just went in one day, taught, beat their ass, whatever. And then in 2013, I got the offer there, and I was a snare tech at 7th Regiment up in New London, Connecticut for 2 years. I also got to write a little bit of body and write some horn body and do some PT. And all of a sudden, I had a little bit of a bigger picture responsibility, getting to go in the box a little bit, what have you. So from there, I went to Crossman. Josh just picked that gig up. I was 15 with Andrew Markworth writing the book. So I went there as the battery visual guy. And I just think part of that job is rehearsing the drum line. So I got to sort of work on some of the skills, like, organizing a drumline rehearsal, like just live really, and just kind of cultivating a visual technique program from the bottom up, so I was there in 15 and less than 16 because I just got a full-time job. I was working at FJM. And then after 16, I got the offer to go to Crown as the battery coordinator, with Travis, obviously. And I'm just kind of going through DCI. I'm going to have to sew this all together in some logical backwards way. But so then I got the call to go to Crown, and that's where I remain now for drum corps. And it all does sort of have like a thread through it. Like in 2014, Travis called me. Actually, in 12, I think it was, I was going to go teach C2, which was cadets DCA group. And I didn't want to do it. I gave the gig to Travis. Through that, they started cadets winter percussion, and he called me up. So it's really weird because we both got each other these jobs in YEA, which is really odd that transpired because it equals a lot more than that. But so he recruits me to come be the snare guy basically at CWP when we're open class 2014. And, I ended up writing a lot of the body and having some bigger picture design, opinion. And, we won open class as our first year out. So our first year doing this, like designing, that was Andrew Montero, Travis, and myself and Rich Hammond, in terms of the design. And, so we won. We actually set the highest record in open class ever that year, which got beat like by Spirit of America maybe the year after that. But it was wild, it was pretty crazy. And then from there we got bumped, or I guess you're supposed to call it, what do they call it? Recalibrated? Promoted or reclassified. It's one of those like PC words. But anyway, we got bumped, and and so we were in world class, and that's 2015 now. We got 6th place overall, 5th place in hands in world. And then the year after that, I just having a life transition. And, my dad passed away, and I was sort of like kind of in a nebulous place. And I ended up, grabbing my stuff and moving out to Ohio and jumping on board with Rhythm X. But I also stayed on with CWP that year. So I was working with CWP as a designer. We got, I think, 9th place that year. I was at Rhythm X doing some visual stuff, teaching the battery when there was a moment. And so that was, 2016. And then 17, I jumped on with Connexus. And unfortunately, after 16, CWP was folded by YEA. So we went and picked up the George Mason University gig. So I have been at Mason now 17, 18. This is my 3rd year. And I was at Connexus the last 2 years. So did I miss anything? It sounds like a lot once you say it out loud.
From what I know,
it does sound like a lot when you jump through it.
Yeah, but I think you got it all.
I think I did. I need to organize that better. I should just read my bio off, but I don't want to sound like a robot either. But, it really does feel that sort of like mosaic in terms of how everything fits together, because it's not random. I didn't like call anyone for a gig.
No, it's just all very organic. Like, obviously, the connections that you made with one group kind of pathway segued to another group, to another group, to another group. A lot of us, most of those groups that you've mentioned, like Crossman, Connexus, GMU, everything kind of except Cadets Winter Percussion kind of stems back to a lot of us that were at Rhythm X, like Tommy Rome, Travis Peterman, Josh Brickey, all that stuff, which is kind of cool to see. Also, side note, some kid just now followed our Instagram. His name is Ryan Ticking Tennerbomb. Give yourself more credit, dude.
Wow.
Yeah, that's rough. That's rough. But your best foot forward.
Man.
Really
giving off a good first impression.
Yeah, that's not. I think it does go back to Rhythm X, though, because Travis and I driving out together every weekend, you spend that kind of time with someone in a car. Like, we became pretty tight, but tight enough for us to sort of find each other these other jobs. But he he is the one that ultimately called me and has been, we've been ride or die since 2014. So that does really go back to Rhythm X as well. We marched United as well. Me, Tom, Travis, all were at United together. But, it definitely stems back to how I was as a member, which is scary in some ways because I was not always responsible, and I was, you guys know. So.
We're well aware. We're well aware.
But it's like you try to look back at how you were as a member, and one, it's like, I have to forgive myself because I was younger and I didn't have the perspective I do now. And then two, it's like, when you're a member, like, you're supposed to goof around a little bit. So
you have your youth and revolt moments. Well, just all of us, like, everybody has their own moments. Yeah, it's like, So
yes, they do.
But,
and I myself had a few, and it's funny because I look at the moments when I was marching where I was probably blowing things up, or I was presumed to be talking back or having an attitude, and like, those are leadership skills in a different context. So I found a career or 2 or 3 where I can basically, what used to be verbal revolting is actually just your contribution. It's like, if you can get to a point where your opinion, however, alternative it may be, is valued, like you can kind of go and say what you want to say. And I find that valuable. Like I hold that very close to myself, even though like these aren't easy things that I do. I like that I have that potential, and that's probably why, because I was like that dude who kind of had an opinion about things, but like sometimes I might not have been totally wrong, but there's a power dynamic in the staff student thing where we can't have that. We can't have everyone kind of putting their vote in. I don't think drumline's a democratic process. I don't think it should be.
It can't be. Yeah, I don't think it can be.
No, I mean,
we're upsetting someone out there.
Yeah, it's okay. It's fine. But we actually were able to catch up with Dan and Travis and the Crown guys mid-tour. And there's always times where it's just like on the staff side of things where you're teaching and stuff. And you're like, man, I just wish sometimes, like, I appreciate that these kids have their own opinions, but I just wish they would do what they're told and everything would work smoother.
And there's this, I think people have a perception, and, as they should be, that it's really easy to teach once you start cracking into that top talent level. But let me tell you, like, the more talented, the more intellectual, the more thorough the students get, the more they're going to challenge you. And what you end up doing is not, you do have to teach, like you got to teach technique, basically the same exact things, but you need to learn how to manage and be responsible for and answer to some really smart people. And many of them are then like the future of the activity, right? So you should respect them too. So that's also, I guess I'm contradicting the thing where I said it's not democratic. It's like, you better listen to the people that you should listen to. There's some that you should, so we try to be smart where it's like, you can't blockade yourself from the student experience, because if you do that, you're disconnected. Like that sounds so dumb. Like, oh, I'm not going to take the students' opinions. They don't know what kind of experience they're having. Like I said to start this, it's like no one knows what they truly look like out there or are perceived as. So your students might, and a lot of times it's like, okay, you've got all this other stuff wrong, but you have this one thing right. Because they're seeing it from that perspective. You know what I mean? So there's got to be a balance, I guess, and you have to be particular about how you deal with that, but I do think that's one of the more difficult things about teaching a group like Crown or like JMU is like, these dudes are really good and you better have an answer.
Yeah.
They'll you for the answer and they will check you if you don't have it, as they should.
Yeah, I think that was one of the first things. So obviously I started teaching. I'm going to be on with Cap City this winter. And it's the first world-class ensemble I've taught since 2013. And I've just been doing like high school stuff in the meantime. But like standing in front of dudes who you're not giving very generic answers to, like it elevates you. And I'm like, man, I need to give high quality information consistently. Right. And it has to be accurate all the time.
Well, they'll know when you're wrong.
Yeah.
They certainly will. And I remember knowing when things weren't right, as a member, actually, having this attitude or whatever as an individual. It's like, well, you got to be nailed. So I agree. And I think that's a great feeling though, too, when you get that rush of like, I better think through the thing I'm about to say.
Yeah, exactly.
It's good. It's definitely healthy. Like, eat your vegetables. You know what I mean? Like, you can go in front of a high school and be like, you're rushing eighth notes. It's like, great. All right. Genius. They're going to latch onto that. And it's probably true, Whereas, like, these dudes are, like, at the last 5% of their snare drum education, and you need to unlock that last 5%, and it's hard to do that. It might be impossible to do that. Some people are too sedimented in their ways to be reversed, So how can you do that? And it's more about the how you do it than even what you're doing. Like, how do you talk to them? How do you approach them? That kind of thing. Because info is, it's not generic, like you said, but two people can say exactly the same thing and get vastly different results. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, your speech, your approach, your aggressiveness, or your passiveness in a moment, it's got to be calculated, and if it's not, it's like you're probably not gauging if they're getting better in real time right in front of you. You know what I mean? If you're being reactive and emotional, you're not really listening to what they're doing and going, okay, that was either better or worse. Now where do I go? You're probably just like, this is bad. I'm off the rails, and then you're off the rails. You cannot be re-railed. So,
I've experienced both of those in many regards, both people who are like relaxed and chilled and just like giving you in-depth information, and people are just flying off the handle. And as a member, like I did not respond well to the people flying off the handle. I almost got in a fight with one of my tenor techs one of the years I marshed.
Well, that's part of it too.
Research that.
As a staff member, you've got to be able to read your students. And you might have to approach someone differently than another, or explain something in a different way to one person because they respond better to this form of explanation. I mean, I know when I've been in groups, there's always one of the two snare techs that I just understand better, or respond better, or responded better to when they were in front of me. And it's part of being a teacher. You've got to, for lack of a better way to say it, you've got to be able to read the crowd.
No, you do. And let me ask you this though. Like, I would say, you know, when you think about your drum corps education, on average, did you have more better teachers than you did in your formal education school? Because if I think about my drum corps career, I probably had a lot higher average of good versus bad teachers in drum corps than I did like in my classes in high school. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that makes you think, because I agree with what you're saying fundamentally, is like, you know, you tend to latch onto a certain style better, you know, or someone's just presenting it to you better or whatever. But I think on average, like the people that enter into the field, quote unquote, are usually, they've been through it in a way that makes them equipped. And then it's like, how do you reach as many people as you can, you know, and you can't always reach everyone. That's like one of the hardest things to realize when you're teaching, especially when you're teaching in the classroom, because you have to give a grade. So it's way, way worse. But it's like, you know, people are always going to fail. And that sounds like super pessimistic, and it might be more realistic, but you can't teach some people, and some people can't. And it might be because of who you are. It's not because they're unteachable. It's because you don't find that place in the middle where you can dialogue, where you can communicate, and you know, that's both and neither of your faults. So, you know, I would just say, you know, I feel like I've had a lot of really passionate and good educators in the drum corps world, you know, because there's only so many drum corps and indoor drum lines to teach, so people work hard to get in. You know, anyone could be a high school English teacher, really.
Yeah, that's true.
On some level. But not everyone can go teach Cap City. There's only one, and you probably have 3 snare techs, you know? So there's like a literal ceiling to how many snare techs there are in independent world, let's say, and you occupy one of those, Evan, right? Or what have you. So, you know, it makes you think like, man, you better try hard.
Yeah,
like not
for
just
sure.
you, but
don't take
all
it for
of us,
granted.
you know?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Because the ratio, I mean, this could be said, I guess, comparatively as well for like teaching in general and the state of education in the country on a whole nother topic. But people who are teaching drum corps and sacrificing their time and their summer, they're not doing it for a ton of money. They're doing it because they're passionate about it, and they want to give that experience back that they received in a positive light to some other student. Like you're saying, in the same thing could be said, I guess, about the teaching world. Like, people don't always do that for financial reasons, because teachers and blah 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 debate, they don't get paid this, that, whatever,
Right.
benefits. But yeah, I understand what you're saying for sure.
And you know, there's two coin, and I'll say this myself. Like I think that people who teach are mostly into it because of the students, and you know, the prospect of, I don't know, creating like a more thorough future, a better future, something stupid like that. But let's not, you know, totally turn away from, like, there are people more than me that just like to explain things to people, like, incessantly and annoyingly. And those people are probably good teachers, you know. And like, I don't know if I'm like that. I kind of would hate to know if I am. I kind of get annoyed with that. People kind of just like to explain things, and they probably are good at, you know, quote unquote teaching. But that's not it, you know. But all that is to say, like, you know, there's a payoff. You know, there's a payoff to being an educator. You know, you have this squad of people around you, whether it's co-teaching in a drum line or, you know, your students. Like, you create a tribe. You create a cohort in and of yourself, especially these guys who are honestly like better than I ever was at snare drumming. It's like, I learn from them all the time. So it's this collaborative, immersive, multi-directional experience. And it's like, I get better every time I have to go out and figure out what to say to Carolina Crown's drumline. It's really hard to figure out what to say all the time, so that's where I kind of find a lot of drive is like, when am I going to stop evolving? If I keep doing this, I'm just going to keep changing my mind about everything. And that's like simultaneously horrifying, but also like really exciting. And that's probably why I do it, is just keep finding out what's next, because I never know. And I keep changing my mind about the fundamental things I thought were true or right. I like totally go in different directions. Like any year, I'll just change my mind about something because I just didn't think of it in that way, and that's, I don't know if everyone does that. I don't know if I would recommend that. That might be part of my problem.
I don't disagree. I think that kind of falls in line with the old adage, if you're not growing, you're dying. Not to say that
Right.
like you're equating growing and changing in the same regard, but you're definitely taking new information and evaluating it and relating it back to like, what do I know and how does this information change what I already know and my perception of this like activity in general. But yeah.
Right. And the truth of it is, especially with what we do, it's not like we are studying some kind of object that is, passive and is static, and we can look at it and it's there and you can touch it and it stays. Like, this thing is on the move, and to think that my attitude or knowledge towards drum corps should be fixed because of the experiences I had between 2005 and now, that would be probably the opposite I should be doing, because this thing moves forward and not back, and anytime that we move back, it's a reference to history, but in an innovative way. You know what I mean? So it's always about incorporating the old into the new as we plunge ahead into the abyss, right? So to think like, well, this is how it's always been done. It's like, we're changing every single time we come out, and that's the reality of it. And I find that harrowing, and I find it hard to know if I'm keeping up in a given moment. But it's, I guess, what keeps me excited about it, because I'm still somehow doing this, even though it runs you ragged in a lot of ways. I can't step away from it. I never have stepped away. I haven't spent a calendar year not in a season of drumline since I started. Now 50% of my life has been occupied, a little more than 50, doing this. So I think what we're talking about, or at least what I am ongoingly rambling about, is that sort of momentum and, the excitement for what's coming up next, or what's happening right now behind the scenes,
Yeah, dude, for sure. Absolutely. I think it's fun. There's obviously always going to be things that people disagree with or are disgruntled about, like the old blah, blah, blah. We used to do it this way, like you were kind of saying. But, I mean, things evolve, things change. That's just time, and time does not stop. So,
and these are trends, and they go in a cyclical nature. I think it's funny how code red people get. Like this summer with the uniform thing, like the internet was aggressive, and it's like we forgot that kids are in the uniforms, like, reaching these like dreams of their whole life, and then people are sitting behind the keyboard like talking about all this sort of like pretty vitriolic sort of talk, like I had to leave the Cavalier alumni page, not to like whatever, but you get it. Like, these are older guys, and I respect that, whatever, they're from a time, but it was like, that's the general rhetoric of the internet, I guess, is sort of this essential, this should be this way and it's not, and therefore, I'm mad or like rage, whatever. But it's funny because like for people to point out that this negative reaction to change, it's like, well, it's already happening. You're like, it's a reaction. It's totally a reaction. And that's what I don't get, is it's because people merely observing and then making a claim about it. It's like, it's already happened. What is this anger about? What is it directed towards? What's the outcome of your anger, or the output rather. So it's kind of funny because, if you're mad about something, go ahead and change it yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't get it. I just don't understand that attitude, I guess, from past generations. It's like, I can't believe that everyone's changing their uniform every year. It's like, what do you mean you can't believe it? Like, look around. This is exactly what it is. And to be honest, this is how trends work. Like, we go and swing into extremes, and then we settle and we swing and we go back and forth. It's like the basic dialectic. You know what I mean? The eruption and then the reconfiguration, and over again. And it's like, that's what we do. Look at fashion. Look at any trend. That's how this stuff works, because we have limitations in our output. We have to reference ourselves. There's no beginning. It's all referential, So that's why, playing on marching xylophones is innovative. That's an innovative move. So that's why
I
it's
loved
creative.
it personally. I thought that was one of the coolest moments of DCI last summer.
And I like how it's pushing forward and it's pushing backwards. And I think that is how you hit the nail on the head, is when you simultaneously prod forward in an innovative way, but at the same time you stick to your roots a little bit. I sound kind of like I'm advocating for this kind of forward moving drum corps thing, and in a lot of ways I am. And I was surprised, honestly, by some of the YouTube comments about Crown dancing too much. I was like, I have known Carolina Crown as a drumline to be tracking in a lot, and now people are saying we dance too much. I'm like, I could have never thought that. I never thought of that as an option, because it's like, this is just the direction we're heading. It's like one that's rolling, if you will. So I don't know. It's kind of weird to try to figure out where things are headed. And honestly, any single group out there could do anything, but it's how you do it, how you present it, a lot of different variables that are going to bring it to fruition in an effective way. So it's not always just the what of it. It's also the identity of the group, that makes things work or not. I would say you gotta fit into that. And I think people just kind of write stuff and it's not related to the members and their experience and all of that. And that seems important. I think that's important.
I think that's the most important. That's the reason for the activity, is the experience. And we kind of gone full circle, going back to you talking about these people being big figures in the eyes of kids. When you saw drum corps, and the feeling and what it gave you to see these kids playing, and then to one day be in that position where you're in it. It is all about the experience. And people, and I don't think it says anything about old drum corps or original traditional drum corps or whatever you want to call it. I think it just says more about, like you said, the age of the internet and the keyboard warriors and stuff like that. That's just kind of that is the drum corps has evolved, but society has evolved into this aggressive, just vitriolic nature online.
Right. And it's so funny, all these old people that are mad about how we have to mic horns now are sitting on their Apple thousands of dollars computer typing into the blogosphere. It's like, you're a hypocrite. It's like, okay, so you're not
watching drum corps on their app, on their stream.
Right, on Flow Marching, all they do is complain about the stream, right? But it's like, so you get to benefit from all this amazing technology and we don't. You know what I'm saying?
The hypocrisy.
Okay, if we don't get to mic the horns, and if we don't get to have these giant speakers, and if we don't get to do this or that, you don't get to use the internet. You have to use your rotary phone. You can go in your yellow pages and whatever. You're like, it's sort of funny, we get to pick and choose those kind of parameters, especially when we look outwards, into something that we think that we're holding dear. If you love drum corps, let it go. That's the truth of it, because trying to hold on to what it was, it's not that. And no complaints here.
No, I'm on board. There's certain things that I'm you see it and you're like, maybe that wasn't
a design decision, but at the end of the day, it's like they're designing for what they think is going to compete and what they think is going to happen. So that's fine.
So
that was like a big, huge philosophical, like,
yeah,
I loved it.
It was awesome, but I want to steer the conversation in one direction so we don't gloss over it for time's sake. We mentioned earlier that obviously the Cavaliers won a drum trophy in 2011. I want to talk about what that experience was like a little bit. Did it come out of nowhere? Did you all see it coming? Did it just kind of randomly happen finals week? Because I remember I didn't march that summer, so I was watching all the groups on YouTube and stuff throughout the season, and I was never overly impressed with your all's level of clarity until finals week. And then I saw it live. Did like a light bulb go off, or how did that work?
Well, excuse me. I will not attest to how clean we played over the arc of the season because I was in it. I could not tell you. I was just playing. But I will say, overall, we won like 25 shows straight. We drums at a lot of shows. We did not have cell phones. They took your cell phones at the time. So I didn't have a phone. I don't even think I had a smartphone at the time. So I was not seeing numbers. I was not looking at numbers. And was it a surprise? I don't think it was, but I also don't think it was realized until it was realized. Like, I think that we were working hard, confident, and we were a good group of people. We didn't really have a tick. And then, I think we lost. We got second place to Blue Devils quarterfinals, and then we won the last two nights, if I remember. And I don't remember finals week feeling nervous. I really don't. I don't remember having this at the forefront of my mind. I remember feeling good. I remember feeling automatic. That's a word Tom Hannum uses a lot, and I really think it's the end is automatic. And, the show we would be doing, in 2011, like we got to finals week, our whole day was run-throughs. We did 5 run-throughs over the course of like 2 blocks. That was the entire day. And then we did ensemble, but from a percussion standpoint, so then we were just putting it on the track, and I just remember like stepping off for the first entrance, and then the show was done, and it was like, okay, that was it. Like, I don't remember much from those last weeks as far as the big picture, because it was sort of just, we had been trained so effectively that, I was on the track. It was just go. So, and that removes my personhood from it, like the machine thing, but that's how we were trained in a good way, not in an abusive way. And it didn't feel heightened or any different until it was like, high percussion, the Cavaliers. And it was like, first of all, I'm in the Cavaliers. Wow. Like, that was never on the radar to be in a group like that. I could go off about that, and it was like, whoa, like, it's done. When you get to the end of the season, good or bad, you're like, I can't believe that's actually done, because it's a year-long project that you put your head down for. It was just super surreal, and it was always surreal to see myself in that uniform. But then it was like, oh, you won. I was like, what does that mean? Like,
you were the best on the planet at what you do.
No, it did mean that at that moment, and that's sort of subjective too, because we put DCI at the top, and we could say like, the old guard or the West Point guys, like those drum lines are incredibly good too. So we could start talking about different genres, but it was really weird. And I remember not thinking too much about the book specifically, not in a bad way, but just like, oh, this is a book. I got to learn these beats, and I got to learn the definitions. And I always wanted to play a MacBook. Honestly, I got cut from Blue Coats in 2008. I was completely not prepared for that at all. And in terms of the group, I was prepared to get cut. I was not prepared for that mission whatsoever. But, like marching under him and marching with Tim Maynard and Brian Tinkle, like that was very I didn't really ever think things like that were going to happen in the first place. So to win was also equally kind of crazy. And like, it didn't really start clicking until the season ended and people would be like coming up to me, like taking pictures, you know, that's when it got weird, you know, where it's like, I like split off in my, you know, I like created a Horcrux that day where I was both myself and I was
You
both
nerd.
dude, Harry Potter reference. Come on. We haven't even talked about that, but
I get down with Harry Potter.
Me too.
yeah. You can say you don't, but the woman's rich. That ship has sailed. But anyway, so it was just really weird, like people kind of coming up to me and telling me who I was. You know what I mean? So I became both myself and the mythical figure of myself, this like spectral ghost-like replacement where it was like, oh, center snare count. It's like, I don't know. It's weird. It's still weird. It's like kind of when you have to talk about yourself, like, there's always that weirdness, you know, and I don't know. It was really cool. Let me tell you that. That night was fun. It probably is one of those, you know, best nights of my life for sure. No question there. But it's really been what's happened since then that matters. You know, a lot of people go and do that and then they totally fall off. So I'm more lucky that I didn't fall off because it's very easy as a snare drummer to just totally get wiped off the map. Just to be real, you know.
I can testify to that.
I've probably done that. I'm sure. But to kind of, we'll segue again back and forth. So now you're teaching two groups. You teach at Crown, and you teach at George Mason, which both kind of have, I don't know, to me, unique setups. Crown and where they do their housing and how they kind of operate as a core. And then George Mason, I think, is one of the few independent world groups that has a relationship with the university, to my knowledge.
Might be the only one.
Might be the only one. How's that work with like the relationship of GMU and like the actual school? Obviously, they're supportive of what you guys do, and or else it wouldn't exist anymore.
You know what? We are very, very supported. And it is awesome. It's kind of baffling. Like, I go down there and we're on a college campus, you know, so there are a lot of resources that come with that, you know, and the appearance that we can create because we are legitimized through an office in a university. It is wild. You know, I have very different experiences, you know, working closely in YEA, and that's winter percussion, and we can talk about that and how that looked. This is very different. There's many, many levels of communication. As with the university, you know, it feels very dense in terms of getting to the core of things. But as we've acclimated ourselves there, it's like, it's pretty wild. You know, it's really cool. We function in a way that independent world groups can't. And the support is really on many different tangible and intangible levels is very deep. So it's really, really awesome.
Like, do you guys rehearse on campus every weekend?
It depends. You know, we have a couple sites that we can use, and if those are not available, we do look outside. For like schools in the surrounding area of Northern Virginia is very expensive because it's near DC. But we do try to find alternative housing if we don't have an ideal space. But we are centrally located on campus. Yeah.
That's pretty sweet. And like the gear, is that the school gear, or did you guys get, I know you guys used Pearl last year. Is that just like Pearl gives that to GMU indoor, but not GMU, the university type deal?
You know, I don't know if I can answer that with accuracy. I'm pretty sure that our current deal or deals are through the athletic bands department, but for the indoor drum line. But I know like they have a tech class and they have a like fife and drum class, and they use the gear. Like we all use each other's stuff.
Okay.
But we have specific deals like our Vic, or no, we're not with Vic. Our Remo deal rather is like through Travis and me and our connection with Remo. So I think it's different. You know, I think we took on the Pearl deal from the previous regime, and the drums are amazing, obviously. So there's a lot of, I don't know that I have the answer for that.
I got you. No, that's no words. And Cap City switched to Pearl, so very grateful for that.
Yes.
Shout out to Pearl. That's awesome. And best reason played drums.
But let me say this. Now that the sponsor thing has come up, I will throw out there that any group and many groups have one with every setup you can imagine, and it's about tuning and it's about your approach. So I don't necessarily believe that using one sponsor is going to give you the trump card over anyone else. It's like, it's about the tuning.
I've used all three of the major brands. I've used Dynasty, Pearl, Yamaha. I mean, I've gotten gold medals with all three, I think. Or, I mean, silver medals with all three. No gold medals.
Right, but the point stands where it's like, it's about how you use this equipment.
Yep.
So I just want to hit that home because I think people get into these crazy theoretical discussions about fibers and woods and this and that, and a lot of that is important. And
how did you tape your sticks this summer? Like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, right. Well, okay, that's better. Other the amount of guts on your bottom head. And that does.
I asked you about that the other day, actually.
Yeah. But that does matter because it actually relates to tuning. But you can sound great with any combo.
Yeah. I mean, Paul Rennick sounds great with Dynasty every year.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. And it doesn't matter. It's about the approach. They're making the sticks vibrate. They're making the drums vibrate and resonate. They're tuning to some relative pitch across the board. They're probably not taping their drums at all, by the way. And I highly suggest not putting tape on your snare drums because I think Tommy Rum said it to me. He's like, dude, why would you put tape on the drums? Like, if you're supposed to muffle them, they come like with muffling. Like, why are we taping the snare drums? Like, they're not meant to be taped. You got to just tighten the guts. And if anyone wants to learn about tuning drums, Tommy Rome is your guy. Dude's a whiz. He is all over it. So I learned a lot from him about some of that stuff. And again, this is like the basic stuff that was instilled in me when I was young. It's like, you got to put the packet tape across the guts so it sounds like a box. It's like
good impression.
Oh, it's like, why? Why? You got to ask why.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that. So that's the GMU relationship. And then Crown, obviously, Crown was my only drum corps experience, which is unique in itself. But, like, I get there, and we're staying at Gardner-Webb University, which is a beautiful campus. And I've talked about this on this podcast before. And during the week, we're eating at the school university cafeteria and this and that. And I'm like, oh, this is what drum corps is. And then I get out on tour and I'm like talking to my friends about their moving experience. I'm just like, wait, what? So obviously you've marched a couple different corps, all age, and then Cavaliers, and you've taught a few different places. What, in your opinion, like separates some of these groups, like for instance, like a Carolina Crown from, I won't say another group, but just in general?
Sure. I mean, there's so many answers to that question. I think the first thing, if I could like qualify, the thing that I felt when I started at Crown was just the expectation from the top. Tom Hanna, Michael Klesch, it's like when they're running rehearsal, they're up there, they are just having a good time. There's not a lot of pressure coming down from the box. They're hitting it home. Like, don't get me wrong, they will key you individually as they should, but the whole energy from them is a mastery and a comfort that I had never noticed anywhere else. And that being said, that's one level of how the organization runs. I think Cavaliers as an organization, they do a lot. I'll speak to when I was there in 10 and 11, they did a lot that really put the member first. Making sure that we were healthy, making sure that we were fed, making sure that we felt good, that we looked good. I mean, there was hair gel on my packing list. Like they really put the vibe and the attitude of the group forward to make you feel like a uber badass as a member. And, I thought it was kind of goofy with the hair gel thing, but I believed it by the end. And honestly, you could embody that, and it's really cool. And it makes you feel like that rock star. So those are just kind of different levels. Actually, both those spring training situations are pretty similar for me, at least. Like Cavaliers, we're on a campus or two campuses, and we got fed and blah, blah, blah. So, very lucky, obviously, that I have been engaged with these sort of groups that are setting a high bar for how to operate, because the financial side is just absolutely unspeakably complicated, and I couldn't even start to testify to that. But there's different ways that a drum corps presents itself professionally or has high caliber. And it's always the people, I would say. It's really, I would start there, is who is like fronting the whole group, who is putting themselves forward, the representative of the group. That's who you remember as like the group. You think of Jim Coates at Crown because he has that core on his back, so he's that, him and Nancy, they're nurturing family. That's
Kevin.
Kevin
Smith.
Kevin and Mo. That's a nurturing family where they will rap with you. They will say hi every single time. Like, just, they're there. So
Kevin Smith still likes my Facebook posts, like, in comments on them to this day. And I aged out like 10 years ago almost.
No, I bet he knows just like everyone that's ever come through that organization, because he's just the man, and he gets up in the morning and does banquet after finals. Like, and him and Jim, like, they're showing up all the time. And like, that's the kind of stuff you kind of put forward, I think, when you remember a group and you try to think about how these experiences are different. Because, you always wonder kind of how these different groups operate. And honestly, also, I'm talking about two very different situations where I was a member in one and on staff at one. So that's also going to give me a kind of slurred perspective. But, when you're in a Crown rehearsal, it's just uber professional, honestly. And then you got to fit yourself into that thing, because these dudes are masters of the craft, which is tremendously, puts a lot of pressure on you at times. But also, like you said, it kind of raises you up. It makes you operate in a different way.
For sure. Absolutely. Well, that was all the like drum corps stuff I had. But how long have we been going here, Mike?
It's been an hour and 2 minutes.
No, all right, we got time. Unless you got to go to sleep.
I'm cool. No,
I'm good.
Cranking.
All right. So this will kind of segue us into the next, like, just non-drum corps. So obviously this summer, Travis, our good friend Travis Peterman, had I don't want to call it an epiphany, but just like an enlightenment that he wanted to make a change. And he started obviously running. He made a big post on Facebook. Like, he started running during rehearsals, before rehearsals, during lunch blocks, dinner blocks, whatever, at Crown. Started working out at the end of the summer, weighed himself. I think he said he lost like 40, 45 pounds, something like that, which is amazing. So I think at least for sure, I went through this period of post age out where I was just like not doing anything. I used to spend all my energy drumming. I don't drum anymore because I don't need to. There's no point. Getting like the dad bod going. Too many carbs and beers. And then you look one day, you're just like, I don't look as great as I used to. And so I made that turnaround, and I was like, I'm going to start going to the gym, working out. So did you start running with Travis, or like put that bug in his ear, or did he just kind of like do that and then you were like, all right, I'm gonna help you with this, so like I'm gonna also do this with you kind of deal, or what?
That's a hard, I don't remember if I definitely didn't push him to run. I'm 5'6". I'm like a thumb. That's what Cameron Halls calls me. Shout out Cameron Halls. That's my boy, Purple Cobra, Baby Cobra. But he calls me a thumb. Something I can't say in this podcast, but so I deserved it. But I'm not a runner, dude. So I think we were just saying, like, I work out incessantly, I would say, during the year, but then on tour you can't. So I think we had just talked like, let's figure out a different way to continue this. And so we sort of just built up from spring training. We started doing some circuits, and I had some bands, and we would just kind of do some basic things, and then some kind of like interval stuff, walking, running laps. And then, by the end of the summer, we were running 5-6 miles straight. He ran 6. I only ran 5. I didn't run the 6 miles with him. So Travis, if you ever get this far in this podcast, we got to hit 7 miles this summer. That's my bad. But I don't run. So I don't run, but I did. I ran with him a lot.
I don't run either.
I hate running. I'll do any form of cardio but run. I can't stand it.
I'd rather swim 7 miles than run 7 miles, I think.
Me too.
I think it's you got to fit yourself into it and figure out how to like it. But I think anyone could like it. I did a Tough Mudder a bunch of years ago. I don't know when it was. It was 12 miles, but I got rocked. It was crazy, but it was super fun. So I recommend Tough Mudder. It's like $150, but it was on Gun Hill or Gunstock Mountain in New Hampshire, and we were running to the summit of this mountain. And I remember just pushing my thighs down so that my legs would move because it was done. They were totally done. That was done, but it was cool. Like I would definitely do that again, even though it was very difficult and embarrassing, honestly, just getting totally roasted by a mountain. But yeah,
I've been wanting to do one for a while, like a Tough Mudder, Spartan Race, or something like that. So
I recommend it. Honestly, I was worried I was going to finish it. I really was. It was hard. It was hard, and I've never run that far before. And it's like a mile on an obstacle, 12 of them. So you're not just running straight, which can be hard psychologically, but you're like, mine was on an actual mountain. Somewhere on like racetracks. That sounds kind of lame. I would try to do it on like real terrain.
Yeah.
But you got to be with like a group of people. It's all about the teamwork, and it's all about like people are just getting fired up and motivating each other, and it's really cool. And it's like you run with people you don't know, and everyone's helping each other, and it was fun. But I think we're gonna run again this summer. Like we were just talking earlier at the gym today. Like, all right, we're gonna be in the weights during the year, and then once we hit spring training, we got to just slim it down and run because there's not that much you can do when you're on.
Winter is bulk season, man. This summer is cut.
I'm gaining 10 pounds this winter, man.
Yeah.
So you guys are still going to the gym. I see you posting on Snapchat on that Stairmaster.
That's my classic Snapchat. The only thing I post on my Snapchat story is my dog or the stairs. But you know what? Yeah, so I've been going to the gym for, I think since 2012. I started going habitually, I would say, and I probably average like 5 days a week if I have a good week. But school, I don't know anymore. I might be down to 4 days a week or 3 on a bad week. But I agree, like Mike was saying, like I don't like cardio at all. I want to lift. I don't really like doing the cardio thing, but apparently it's good for you. Like if you lift and then you do cardio, you're clearing up your lactic acid or blah blah blah. It's gonna help your like kind of healing process and activate your ATP cells or whatever, some stupid stuff like that. So I do cardio every day that I go, every single time.
When I'm cutting, I do. When I'm cutting, I'll lift, and then I will do like 15 to 20 minutes on the Stairmaster or an incline treadmill or a stationary bike or whatever I feel like.
Yeah, the bike's easy, though. The bike is easy.
No, you do intervals. You're sweating like a stuck pig after it.
Dude, do the ellipticals.
Yeah.
Do that incline treadmill.
Dude,
I
incline
like doing
treadmill
the stairs.
will kill you.
I'll do the stairs, and then sometimes if you get to the gym at the right time, because I'll come home and then go to the gym after school or whatever, and then I'll go on the bike, and then all of a sudden, like, the spin class starts coming in, so we just been bumping spin classes. So you just get roasted in the spin class, and they mess you up. Like, it is hard. I sweat a lot.
Dude, my wife's been doing, like, these at-home workouts with, like, this beach body, like this lift 4, and she's like, "Oh, do them with me." I did one. Dude, it tore me up. I was like, this is too hard for me. I'm like, I go to the gym 4 or 5 days a week, and this is hard.
Yeah, their body, the body weight thing is way worse. I don't know. To try to do like strictly body weight exercises and gravity exercises, it's like
she's doing like she's doing like plyo stuff for like 30 minutes straight. I'm like,
right.
I'm dying right now. But
yeah, and like, you might just be built for something else. I'm condensed. My range of motion, shout out Marcus Newdigate. My range of motion is just intrinsically short. Yeah, he gives me problems because he says when I do pull-ups, my ROM is whack, but whatever.
So Chris Gary can fix that.
Dude, yeah, he really could. But like my arms are so short, so I have a good advantage. Like I always say, like, you know, when I was in middle school and high school, I was just small. Like I'm just short, but like this is the one thing I can do because for me to fully contract is a lot less distance than most people. So I have an advantage from that standpoint. I'm more condensed.
That's what I try to tell Mike on, like, when we're talking about bench press, because like Mike's a lot taller than me and he has way longer arms. I'm like, well, I don't have to move the weight as far as you do.
Yeah, dude. When I bench, I'm so bad. I can't bench a lot at all. Like relative to what my other lifts are, it's just so hard.
Yeah, well, the mechanics of it ring true. I mean, you're moving through space longer, right? So, yeah. But I mean, you know what? Like, here's my thing. First of all, you should be benching with the dumbbells. You guys using dumbbells, using the bar.
I go back
and forth.
Both. I go back and forth.
Go back and forth. Okay, good. Yeah. I was gonna say I like going back and forth.
Gotta get those stabilizer muscles, man.
Usually on days I do barbell bench, I do dumbbell incline, and on days I do dumbbell bench, I do barbell incline.
That's nice. What I do. Same. Okay, good.
I do a nice mix of, like, today was actually a chest and back day. I'm doing them on the same day right now, but
push pull, yes.
Yeah,
push pull
and so
awesome.
Warm up the back muscles.
Keeps your posture good. But I think I did one incline machine, some cable decline stuff, dumbbell flat bench, another incline machine, and then just with back stuff,
I got that
row and
stuff
pull
from
down
Bradley
stuff.
Martin, watching a Bradley Martin video.
Yeah, that dude's probably on steroids, but he
is 100%.
Yeah,
he's a freak too.
Nobody gets like that without help.
You gotta just, you know, like I see some dudes at the gym and I'm like jealous and I'm mad because I again just can't reach my maximum potential in anything. But at the same time, it's like you probably one inject yourself and two. The amount of time you spend to do that, it's just preposterous. Like I can't do that. And if I could, what I would be doing in my like professional life would be probably pretty it would be vapid. It's like what kind of job do I have to dedicate myself to like looking like a sculpture? Like I just can't. And like, you know, it's also like what you get out of doing this work. Like is it that I feel better because I look better, or is it I feel better because I have done something to myself psychologically in the process of facing the impending doom of getting crushed to death by a weight? Like that's where I get my value out of the weightlifting thing. It's been more like the challenge of it, showing up to it, and trying to be consistent with it, and failing sometimes, and then going back and, you know, hitting peaks, and it's like a saga, you know.
Yeah, for me it's both. I feel good just from being stronger and healthier, and the endorphin release you get from lifting like that. But what's just happened? Whose mic's dying?
I don't know.
Evan, you sound like you're eating chips.
Yeah,
I'm not eating chips. That's not the case.
All right. What I was like, to me though, part of my motivation comes from seeing the changes in my body. Because for me, my whole life, I was super skinny, zero muscle mass. I mean, you guys remember when I was marching, I was a stick. Like there's nothing to me. And that's been one of the major motivators. You're just more confident. You're just a more confident, comfortable person, at least for me personally. That's how it's almost
like it's like your body is like your visual thermometer for where your brain's at.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah, you feel better because of how you look, but you look better because you're making yourself feel better through this process. It's like totally reciprocal. You know what I mean? And like, I don't know. I don't always like walk around like, oh, I look good. Like I'm not necessarily feeling that way.
No, but you notice it. You notice it.
Well, I do. At this point, it's kind of hard to tell, but I think it's more like what my mind feels like and kind of how I feel more motivated, and just the responsibility you place on yourself to motivate yourself in those processes is like super hard to do. You know what I mean? It's not, people like talk about starting to work out. I'm like, oh, this is horrible. I would never want to start.
Yeah.
In relation to that, I started working out in the mornings like 2 months ago. Yeah. Which I never thought that I would be out. I was like, I'll never do that. That'll never be me. And it sucked for like 2 weeks, maybe even like a month. But now that I'm into it, like I go to work at like 8:30 after I've already been in the gym for like an hour and a half, and I'm like, I feel great.
Yep.
It wakes you up.
Yeah.
I love studying right after I lift weights. My brain is so awake and focused.
I agree. And I know for myself, go 2 days in a row without hitting it, I'm just like a depressed piece of crap.
Yeah.
I'm just like sad. I don't know why, and I feel bad, and everything feels bad. I'm like, oh, I just was at the gym for 2 days, and then I go back in, and like everything just clears up. It's like the grit in your joints and your muscles and in your brain and your blood. It just all starts to move. So it's kind of like intuitive, though. You know, it's kind of funny. Like I don't know, but I'm not trying to like fat shame, and I never tell anyone what to do with themselves. I really don't care. But I think it's obvious that if you try to put some work into your body, your brain will light up.
Yeah, definitely.
Seems so obvious.
Yeah. To try and tie this into drum corps, Evan and I have talked before, and I just kind of want to get your opinion on it. I don't know about you or Evan really, but I wished I was doing this while I was marching. I feel like I would have been so much a much better performer if I was in the shape now that I was, or no, then that I am now. If that makes sense.
Well, I went to the gym casually when I was at Temple, and then I started going more seriously after I moved home and finished school there. But I could see how it could instill some confidence in you as a performer. I didn't have that as a problem. I'm just like that. I was just
I always did.
Right, like that's just a personality thing. It's
yeah.
like how you kind of put yourself out there as a performer. You know, I did like jazz band and I did plays and dance class and things like that when I was little. And my parents were both performers, so I kind of don't care. Yeah. I've always been sort of like that, but I could definitely see like, you know, I think it's gonna give you your best foot forward in anything. Like I don't see a situation in which exercising is going to deter you or put you in the wrong direction. You know what I mean? So I think you can apply that to damn near anything.
Well, yeah, but I'm more speaking in terms of I would have been a better marcher. I would have been a better player if I had the muscle mass that I do now when I was marching.
Right. I think what you're talking about and referring to is really sometimes drum corps misses the mark a little bit on like the PT.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're all like cardio. Let's wake up. Let's run. It's like, well, really, I don't need to run. If I did like some like squats or like some sit-ups and stuff and worked on my core, it'd probably help me out a little bit more than
especially
just running.
In the off season, like going into the summer. I think everyone marching drum corps should be on like a weight training program for like the 4 or 5 months leading up to it, because their body.
Not everybody's gonna do that.
So what we do is Crown has like a fitness page, but you know, we've had workout logs, and I'm taught 7th. We had pretty diligent workout logs, and I was very serious about filling those out, and they would do them. And I've put some people on some different things, some different ways to do that, because a lot of people just don't know how.
Yeah.
But I agree in terms of on the off season doing strength and conditioning. At Crown and at Cross when I was there, we do yoga every morning. So, because you don't need to be like strong, you don't need to be getting ever stronger in drum corps, because you are going to get lean and you are strong, and it's about your endurance, and it's about your respiratory system and all that, because you're going for 12 minutes, but it's about being flexible too. So we do yoga, and that's also like a meditative thing, which is helpful. But we stretch more seriously. I think that is helpful, but I would agree that you would want a base of like something, because then when you start shedding all that, you're not like a skeleton.
Yeah, you know? I mean, both at the end of both of my summers, I was so physically weak. If it wasn't that performance, that show, I felt feeble and just weak. And I think because you lose so much over the course of the summer, if you go in with a solid foundation of muscle, you're going to have more of that muscle left over at the end to be less of a Holocaust survivor.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Well, you're right. Yeah. You'll be more sturdy in general, because your whole structure changes once you get more into that. I mean, I'm sure you guys are feeling that. You're kind of getting into the depths of doing this habitually, and all of a sudden you like literally reshape your body. Like everything can change about that like structure. So I agree with that for sure. I gained 15 pounds my first year at Cavaliers. I don't know how.
Really?
What?
They feed
Eating
us
a bunch
and,
of PB&Js and
I lost
brownies.
15
No,
pounds.
they're hooking it up. First of all, we were eating like king strawberry chocolate fountains. Ask anybody.
Oh, dude, I ate
sure
off the
you heard
Cavaliers
about
truck a few times in 2010, actually.
Yeah.
Some hot fudge sundaes.
It was wild. I mean, that's my first DCI experience, so I didn't really have anything to compare it to. But yeah, I gained 15 pounds, and I was all right, you know. But then my drill was also easy.
Dude,
I wasn't.
Blue
I wasn't
Stars.
getting beat up like that.
I'm sure Travis has talked about it. That Blue Stars 2010 drill was hard.
Yeah, and you guys did a lot of body. That's what I'm finding now. Actually,
that was hard.
Like in 17 for Crown, the dudes were saying like that drill was a lot harder. But in 18, they all lost a lot more weight because we're doing so much choreography and body. You know, it's like I was like, all right, go into plie, and then like 32 counts go by. It's like you're still in plie. So they would just be doing like there's like an increased physicality to it, but the wasn't as hard for us in 18. So like you got like Blue Stars 2010, you guys were doing an unusual amount of body. You know,
especially for that time.
Yeah.
Especially for that time.
Yeah, well, exactly, because Joel was on that, and his stuff was good, and it was musical, and you guys were in these gyrating, rotating forms that are changing and all that indoor stuff. So you were having to do that difficult stuff. But, you know, like, it's changing now. Like, some groups, you know, like the cadets drill is hard. You know, their drill is hard.
It was real hard.
This is very
they're
hard.
getting beat up doing that, but we're doing the body. So that's hard because of even in standing still, you know, like the way you have to break things down, it's like you always have to be in visual. So it changes the parameters of how you rehearse because it's always coming back to, all right, now layer in it's never in spot, you know. So that's probably my fault because I have to clean the drum line that I'm choreographing for. I should probably like back off so I can just clean the hands, but whatever.
Yeah, the hands were pretty clean at the end of the year.
Incredible sound quality. Incredible sound quality.
You're pretty good.
Yeah,
they were pretty good.
That's one way to put it. It. All right. Well, we've been going for an hour and 23 minutes.
Oh, that's nothing compared to a Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah. Well, is there anything you guys want to hit that we haven't gone down yet? I'm good. I mean, I'm chilling. So it's up to you guys.
I don't really have anything. I think we've covered.
I mean,
I'm
up for whatever, but I mean, we went through my list. I guess somebody's vibrating. Late night booty call.
Wasn't me.
Wasn't me.
I got an email on my phone.
Definitely wasn't a booty call for me because my wife's asleep in the next room. But
all right, well, I think we've covered everything we need to. So, Dan, you good?
Yeah, I personally don't have anything more to say about any topic at all. So
well, we all know that's not true. We all know that's not true.
No, from here forward, listen, I'm taking a code of silence. I'm going to go into the mountains in Burma and become a monk. And,
Burma.
This is going to be I'm denouncing speech. So this is it, guys.
All right, well, we are going to do a part 2 because there's things we didn't get to, and I want to make sure this is short enough to still go on Spotify. So, everybody, as always, thanks for joining us. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, like the Facebook page. We're now on both Podbean and Spotify, so follow us on both of there. Listen wherever you want. And we're still working on iTunes. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks, and we'll see you all then.
Peace.